Welcome back to the Bears Baseball Network. We have another great episode here. There's 2 weekends left of the Bears season, 1 for youth, 2 for high school. But I want to talk about today the hottest show of the winter. It is the BWL, the Bears Winter League, the 3rd season of the BWL. And I'll tell you what, the BWL is so great because you get to see the top hitters in the Bears going head-to-head against the top pitchers. You get to see the top 15 you guys against the top 14 you guys, and we get a sneak peek into the 2025 breakouts. I mean, so many players who broke out in 2024. We kind of got a taste of that breakout back in the Bears Winter League of last season, so I'm excited to get into another season of the Bears Winter League. This year we've got KJ of the Pinstripes going up against Rob Floyd of the Throwbacks, and I'm excited to get into all of it here today. So Bernie, let's go. Who are the top draft picks of each league? Who are some of the sleepers in each league? And of course, the format of the BWL, we'll do that first. So the BWL is a 10-week season in the winter. The team, as soon as you get to 6 wins, you'll get a 1-run lead in the championship game. So 7 wins will be a 2-run lead, and so on. That'll be kind of your advantage for the regular season. We have a 12-13U league, a 14-15U league, a 16-18U A league, and then a 16-18U B league. So 4 different Bears Winter Leagues. And it's going to be fun. You got to be drafted to be in a league. Even if you are not drafted, though, you can get picked up as a free agent. I think something like 60% of all Bear players were picked up or drafted last year to play in the so even if you don't get drafted, you can still get picked up. A lot of guys get picked up for guys being sick, guys being hurt. So plenty of opportunities to get in there. During the season, you have to make both your team practice and the BWL. If you miss a practice or you miss a Savage Strength, you are ineligible for that week. So with all that aside, let's go ahead and get right into it, Bernie, starting with the 12-13U league. Bernie, a lot of talent. I mean, I think we would say that maybe a little bit top-heavy in this league. When you get down to the later rounds, you're going against some unproven talent, but certainly the top of this league is full of a ton of talent. Let's talk about the first round or 2 of this league. Bernie, I think the obvious first 2 picks here. In fact, I think it's already been announced that Harrison Bleibom will be the number 1 pick. There have been some trade rumors, potentially, but as of right now, I think the Throwbacks are planning to take Harrison Bleibom with the first pick. But Bernie, Harrison, Rudy, really can't go wrong either way. What are your thoughts of the first round of this draft?
Yeah, 2 unbelievable players. With H, he's obviously one of the best hitters in the Bears. You think at worst case possible scenario in this league, he's the second best hitter. At worst case, scenario possible.
Yeah, you really can't go wrong. I would say with these 2 players, Bernie, depending on who's going to get more value for their team, it really comes down to how well is Rudy going to pitch. Because I think their offense and defense is going to be about even. I think Rudy obviously plays a very impactful position behind the plate. I think both of them are going to hit great. Harrison, I think, is very safe on the mound. And then Rudy, we don't really know what he could be. If he could be the best pitcher in the league. Could be the most dominant pitcher in the league. I think if he's in the strike zone, nobody's touching him. So I think that's kind of that X factor of, do you want the safety of Harrison's pitching, or do you want the... Moving on to kind of the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th round of this draft, Bernie, you're looking at, how do you value kind of the age gap here? I think historically the last 2 years of the BWL, it's been rewarding to take the older players, but which of these 12U Floyd guys do you think could be huge impacts here in the early rounds of the draft?
Yeah, I think if you go past some of the 12 or some of the 13 guys like Vogt, Owen Lewis, I think are probably the next 2 off the board, but Lewis Closer, I think, could be a big impact. I think he's a bat that plays the BWL, very athletic. I think he plays some solid defense as well. And Cooper Woolen, who I think has had a great fall. I think those are probably the next 2 that I would take off the board. That could be, immediate impacts toward the top of the lineup.
Yeah, and then another guy, kind of a 2-way threat, is probably Owen Haynes. He's probably the best 2-way threat of the 12U guys. It's going to be interesting to see how he competes against some of those 13U bats, but I'm excited to get into it. Bernie, before we move on to the next draft, let's go ahead and you give me a sleeper hitter for this age. I'll give you a sleeper pitcher. Who's kind of the sleeper hitter that maybe is going to fall in the 6th through 12th round of this draft?
Yeah, this guy's going to fall definitely below all the top 13U guys. I think a decent amount of 12U guys to pick for him as well. But Braden Young, I think he started the fall in the second team, came up sometimes, took some good at bats, but really the past 2 or 3 weeks of the season, including this upcoming weekend, he's my starter. He's a starter. He's going to bat in the 6-hole. He's supposed to really numbers. He's over 800 OPS. Playing against some good teams, man. So this guy's gonna take good at bats. I think he's gonna see a lot of fastballs in this league, especially with the younger kids throwing to him. I think he's gonna mash.
Yeah, and he's one of those guys, Bernie, that I could see really getting his breakout in this winter. We see it in the BWL, and then he sets up a monster 2025. I think that's a great choice. I'm getting with a guy who's been here a little bit longer in Rowan Damschroeder. This is a guy who gets his innings kind of limited because of the stacked roster he plays on during the season. But obviously in the BWL, those rosters are split. So I think there's going to be a lot more opportunities for Rowan to make his mark on the mound. I think he's done some solid work when he has gotten a chance to pitch. And I think if he's in that rotation, I could see him being a nice sleeper addition for whatever team drafts him. Let's move on to the 14-15U league. This league is very interesting. Obviously, you got a lot of young rookies on that 14U team. This 15U lineup's got a lot of veterans, a lot of older players. It's going to be interesting to see which way this goes. Bernie, when you're looking at the first, I would say 3 or 4 picks of this draft, what do you kind of see as the top of the 14-15U draft?
All right, so the top of this 14-15U draft here, I think Evan Lancaster, at least for me, would be my number 1 overall pick. Great hitter. Also, probably the most dominant pitcher for that 15U squad. Lewis Wilburn's obviously he's been up at the top of the draft board for a couple of years now. He's always a threat in the box and on the mound. A couple other guys, I think Aaron Knoll, obviously the bat. His bat's going to play in this league. Again, another very athletic kid. And then Conrad Kaminsky, who's had a very good fall. I think, as of a couple weeks ago, I'm not sure about now, but he led 15 full in batting average, right? So this kid's had a great fall. He's a great defender in the infield, great defender on the plate. There's a lot of use out of him.
Yeah, when you're looking at the early rounds of these drafts, especially as you get older, you're looking for guys who are two-way threats. I think the obvious two there are Evan and Willie B. But again, Conrad's been a nice two-way threat. He's starting to pitch more on that 15 Floyd team, putting up some good numbers. I think Aaron Knoll is a sneaky two-way threat as well. And then we look at some of the 14U guys. I think it's hard to ignore what Landon Portel's been doing. I think he's got the size to kind of play with 15U. Maybe he's a 3rd or 4th round pick, but I think he could very easily be the first guy to go from 14U. And then when you look at some of the guys who are dominant in one area or the other, I think you got to look at a guy like Nick Byrne, who could be a very dominant bat, and then a guy like a Lucas Velchek could be a very dominant arm. And both those guys, I think, could contribute the other way as well. So we'll see about that. Bernie, when you're looking at a sleeper hitter in this draft, somebody who's going to go a little bit later in the 14-15 draft, who do you see as kind of a sleeper hitter?
Yeah, for this league, the guy I kind of picked here, I think has the right mentality to be a sleeper, right? You're probably going to start of the BWL on the bench. Get your 1 at bat a day, and you got to take advantage of it, man. I've seen this guy do it with the 14U Floyd team during the fall season, and I've seen the reason why he can't do it here. It's Christian Jenkins. I like this kid's mentality, I like his work ethic. I think if he gets an opportunity, he'll take advantage of it.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to go with the guy who, I actually have 2 names here because I'm not sure if Bernie's going to let my first one fly as a sleeper. But my first pick was going to be Colby Lair. I'm not sure where he's going to go. He could get drafted a little bit too high to be a sleeper, but I think he could be a huge impact on the mound. He's definitely my highest ceiling pick for a sleeper pitcher. But my other one is a guy, Quentin Choate, who I think has kind of put some investment into his pitching part of his game. I think he could very easily find himself in some garbage time innings early in the season. And if he does well there, he could very easily find himself getting more opportunities. So Quentin Choate, I think, is more of that later round pitcher. And then Colby Lair, I think, is that big impact sleeper. Moving on to the 16-18U A League. Obviously, Bernie, there's kind of it's okay if you kind of mix up who's going where, but let's start with the top of the A-League. You're looking at some of the best players in the Bears here, Bernie. Obviously, the Ben Combses, the Logan Eckerts, the Wyatt Poors. We just talked about, Bernie, the two-way threat being kind of that favored number 1 pick, but I'm not sure there is a dominant two-way threat at this age, Bernie. What do you think? Who's kind of that first 3-4 picks of this draft for you?
Yeah, I think you got to take Ben Combs at some point in the first couple picks. Just because of his offense, I think he is. I will still stand by. I think he's the best hitter at 15U or 16U right now. I think if you're looking for a two-way threat, Willard kind of gives you that. He has some good stats on the mound this year. Obviously known for his hitting, but has been a good pitcher. I think you got to take Logan Eckert in the top 4. Really close to it. This guy is the best pitcher in the draft, bar none here. And then the other pick, I would go with Wyatt Poor. Very good defensive catcher behind the plate. No one's going to run on him, and he was one of the best hitters of that 16U squad.
Yeah, another guy who I think is very opportunity. A guy who's shown that he can be dominant on the mound. and he can be dominant at the plate, and he plays a key position. I think that's a really nice mix for him to be a favorable option for these coaches. Bernie, looking later in the draft here toward the bottom of the A-League. Again, these guys could be top B-League or they could be bottom of the A-League. Who do you got as a sleeper hitter for the A-League here in 16-18U?
Yeah, I'm going with my man Lucas Coulson, the guy I've liked since he joined the Bears. Another guy I think has the work ethic right. When I'm making these kind of sleeper picks, I like to pick the guys who I think are going to make a big jump over the course of the offseason with their work ethic. Guys like Jenkins, guys like Lucas Coulson, who made a big jump last year. I think we see the same type of jump this year. I know he's probably a defensive first player here, but his offense came a long way this season. I think that he will make an impact.
For me, I'm going to go ahead and give both my sleepers for the A and B League right now because I think one of these guys will be late round A. One of these guys I think will be early in the B draft. The first guy I'm going to go with here, again, I think he could be late round in the A or he could be high round in the B. It's going to be Aiden Page, who I think, again, kind of has that two-way appeal. I think big power, big strikeout potential on the mound. And if he is in the B-League, I think he's going to be one of the most dominant arms. And if he does get drafted in the A-League, I think he's going to be a very nice sleeper pick for whoever gets him. My other sleeper pitcher is going to be Carter Abernathy, who I think has really come along. I think he's developed 3 good pitches he can throw all the time. And again, I think he's in that same boat where he could be a reliever and be a nice impact for an A-League team, or he could be a starter and be one of the best pitchers in the B-League. I think Carter Abernathy will be a nice pick for whoever gets him. Bernie, finally, your last sleeper here, who's probably going to be a B-League guy. Could be late A-League, but probably a B-League sleeper here. Bernie, for you, a hitter.
Yeah, this guy was out, basically all summer. I believe it was a hip injury. Out basically the whole summer. And I really did not know how good of a fall season this guy was having. He's one of the Train's best hitters. He has one of the most pop on the team. I also think this kid worked really hard last offseason, so I have no reason to believe he won't work hard this offseason. We'll go with Atticus Slocum. Yeah,
he's a guy, Bernie, who I think if he wasn't injured, he'd get a lot more hype right now. Even before the injury, he did have kind of a lot of hype going into 2024. I know he had a good high school season. He was off to a great start in his summer season before he got shut down, and he's come back with a vengeance. I think this guy could be a huge pick for whoever gets him in the BWL. So that's going to do it for this episode of the Bears Baseball Network. We have our last youth weekend this weekend, our last high school weekend 2 weekends from now, and then, of course, we have our fall award show that will be after that. So that's going to do it for this episode of the Bears Baseball Network, and we'll talk to you all next week.